everyone. We have a special guest back with us today, Anjie Carpenter Hipple. It's been a little over a year since we've met, so welcome back. It's so nice to see you again.
Thank you. Thanks, ladies. It's so good to be here.
Yeah, so I wanted to start out if you wanted to maybe catch listeners up on what has been happening in your life over the last year. Is there any new developments, anything you'd like to share with listeners?
Sure. Well, I first just want to say I smile every time Robin pops up on my feed. I feel like we're having these parallel journeys. I know we show up in a lot of the same places, and I just enjoy seeing you guys bloom as well and all the goodness that's coming from the way you're serving the world. It's been a busy year. We got a couple of courses out, and we meet with our live stream family every Sunday night, and that's been growing. Judah had always was always saying, "We're the Judah family, the Judah family." And so as I kind of leaned into that, I was like having my private conversations with Judah. Okay, Judah, we're saying Judah family, but how do we actually make that a reality? Um, I do a lot of personal sessions with folks through this work and hear from a lot of people. And there's a lot of loneliness out there for folks who are on a spiritual journey. As their level of consciousness is going up and elevating, they find they have less and less in common with people around them, sometimes the people that are the most important to them. And so there can be a sense of isolation from that. So one of the things we did this year was opened a free Telegram group for the Judah Family International. And people have just been really beautifully loving on each other in such a real supportive way. And I see them sharing some of Athena and Robin's stuff too on there. And they're just sharing their struggles, sharing their victories, and becoming a family. And so that's one of the things we've been really wanting to do is create families of intention for people where they really
Mhm.
feel they belong, that they're heard, that people kind of get the things they're going through and can kind of maybe shed a light on the next few steps for them. But we're just
Mhm.
staying happily busy over here with whatever comes our way and just feeling really super thankful.
Yeah,
That's
we've
awesome.
done that, created a WhatsApp after we've had courses that people have participated in. And like you, I'm really surprised at the bond really that people get between each other. And also some of the things that they share that just hit the mark for people, depending on where they are in their journey. Sometimes there's a book or a quote or a particular YouTube or recording. It doesn't have to be ours. It's just something that hits
Yeah.
them right in a place at the time that they need it. So I think those groups are wonderful, and I'm really happy to hear that you did that. We've tried to do that a little bit. It's nice that you've opened it up to such a larger listening area
Yeah.
where we've just done it with smaller groups of those that have participated in some of our courses. But long after they're over, like well a year after, we can still see people
Mhm.
interacting. Once in a while, we'll drop on there, and then Athena will write a little something, or Heidi will comment on something, and people really are endeared by that. So it's really a great thing that you're doing.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
that's synchronicities too, when you see two people from the same town in Australia or Bosnia that meet and connect with each other. It's really cool. It's so sweet to know how
Yeah, we
looked
had,
after and cared
yeah.
for we are like that.
Yes, we've had a
Yeah.
couple from our group that actually didn't live in the same town, but got together. I think it was
Mhm.
in another state. They met, got together, had photos together, and it was so nice to see. They would
Beautiful.
have never met had it not been for that. So that was a really cool thing.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's been a good healing for me too, and the stretching. Before we got on the recording today, we were talking about how the sausage is made. Like what is it like? What does it feel like being a channeler or doing this sort of work behind the scenes on a more personal level? And so as we were launching it, and I was seeing all of these texts and messages go out, and occasionally I would see something in my kind of mama's heart, my grandmother's heart would be like, oh, that probably stung, a comment or so. Um, And so part of my healing and working through that was just to learn to be okay, to just trust that whole group, to do what they do and respond how they respond. And even if someone gets hurt or there's something, negative, that they're all adults and they're smart and they're capable and they're high consciousness and they can work out these issues. So I had to take my little mother's hat off, my little mother managing thing that I've done all these years, raising 3 kids and having 4 grandkids, and just let them be, and it was so beautiful because when they hit little bumps in the road in their relationships, they worked through it just like champions, and they just kept loving all parties involved, and they didn't cast anyone as the victim or the villain. It was just really beautiful. And it was a really good lesson for me. We really can trust each other in our journeys. We can trust one another with struggles in relationships and negativity and things that come up. Those are really like the boot camp or the proving ground, I guess, where,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, as long as you've opened with that, and I know Heidi has some questions for you also, but out of curiosity, being a channel myself, I would like for, if you wouldn't mind sharing what really goes on behind the scenes for you. Is there anything happening with your body, or is there any type of experience that you could share that would maybe enlighten people a little bit to what actually goes on with a channeler, aside from just moving into the channeling state? What's going on with you personally between you and your group? And how is your body affected by that in the way that it moves and the way that it feels and all of those types of things?
Yeah, it's again, I'm just still really learning and growing so much. When I work with people one to one, I ask their permission and I consciously connect in with their consciousness. So I'm literally merging my thoughts and feelings and my bodily sensations in with theirs. So as Judah and I are working with them, let's say I might feel pain across my heart area, or a pressure, maybe. I'll say, "Are you feeling a pressure in your heart?" And they'll say, "Yes." Or maybe I feel tickles around my eyes. I'll say, "You might be feeling tickles around your eyes, your third eye opening right now. Are you feeling that?" And they'll say, "Yes." So I've learned through experience that I'm very much connected in, very intimately. And so I've had to, I'm learning to be comfortable and be okay with that, and then to separate back out. It's kind of like two clouds, moving across the sky, and they might come together and be one cloud for a little while, and then for some miles, and then separate back out. So I'm learning to navigate that. And then there are also times where people feel things from me that I'm not aware of. Like I'll get messages that my face appeared in the room, where they were, like, in a physical, tangible way. I don't know how that happens, but I believe them when they say it. Um, then other times I'll be having a typical day, and maybe, let's say, I'll suddenly feel very, very sad, maybe terribly sad for 2 or 3 hours, and no real logical explanation for it. And then I just have to remind myself to check in and ask Judah, is this my sadness or is it someone else's?
And how does that communication come to you? Because sometimes I'll laugh and I'll say, well, the group is good for everybody else, but not that good for me. Because my consciousness, when it's lifted out or I'm channeling, I can't pose a question, obviously, in that state. And I can't even run outside and ask my husband to pose it because I start thinking and then my consciousness comes back in. And so I've pretty much given up the idea that I'm never going to get an answer. So if I have a problem, I usually go to Heidi, who can sort it out for me. But do you have these type of problems, or are you able to just like communicate you and them? Is that different in your experience for you?
So like in that experience, where I was just so incredibly sad, I'll use muscle testing, is that, or use my body as a pendulum. So, for instance, if I ask a yes or no question, if the answer is a no from my higher self and from Judah, my body will tend to move backwards. And if it's a yes, my body will tend to move forwards. Or sometimes, and I've seen this with other people as well, they'll use my body kind of as a pendulum. So a yes might look like this, and a no might look like this. you know. So I will just check in. I'll say, Judah or higher self, is this my sadness? And I also use muscle checking a lot. That's like super fast way for me to check in. And if I get a yes, I'm like, oh, okay, it's my sadness. So it's time for me to sit down and do some interior work, find out what's going on with me. But a lot of times I get a no. And so then I start checking, is this John's sadness? No. Is it Sally's sadness? No. Is it June's sadness? Yes. Okay, it's June's sadness. So then I, kind of feel into what do I need to do? Do I just pray for them, meditate a little bit? Do I dissolve the connection with them? Do I call them up? So I just kind of feel into
Well, it
guidance.
is a little bit of a different way that you have to conduct yourself for yourself than it would be with a client. So you kind of, it's like you have to use a tool. That's what I've kind of found too. And I think that's how people end up actually using tarot cards, because it's something that they can rely on and trust in. Anything that you rely on and that you trust in can respond to you. And I think that I've even thought about that for myself, maybe tarot cards, maybe some type of a pendulum like you're talking about. It's almost like it's very difficult to remove your consciousness and receive a channeled response when you're the vehicle, when you're the one that has to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And fortunately, my husband also knows how to do muscle testing, which is helpful because sometimes you do just kind of get turned around in an entanglement and you're not really sure where
Yeah.
the energy is coming from or if some of it or all of it's you. Usually I think for me, it's some me and some the other person. But I mean, I think ultimately that's what channeling is. It's entanglement. It's us entangling ourselves with this beautiful, beautiful beings that we work with, Athena and Judah. And of course, their energy is so safe and so loving and so high vibrational that it's like, for me, it's such a comfort and to just enter into that energy. But then I'm also getting entangled with all sorts of other energies from people, places, and things. And because that's kind of my work, is to allow myself to be vulnerable. Um, but I really feel that, and I know you believe this, Robin, that, these entities, they really respect us. They respect our bodies. They respect our time. They respect our energy. They respect our emotional state.
Yeah.
Um, and they want us to be well and be healthy. I don't think these beings are asking for us to like self-sabotage or just burn ourselves out, being
And
at
in
their
fact,
disposal.
it seems like you just have a thought that something maybe isn't satisfying to you, and a modification happens. It's like immediately that's modified. And then just further a question: what is there any thing that goes on with your body when you're when say perhaps you're maybe not in the channeling state, that any type of work that goes on or anything that happens to you physically? Is that something that goes on when you're not channeling?
Yeah, and it's some of it's very bizarre. And so you're getting a real insider view today. Good question. Some of it's really bizarre, so I don't share it very much. Fortunately, with Chuck, he's kind of privy to or open to the weirdness of all of it, and is just he's able to kind of just let whatever's happening. Like the other night, we were snuggled on the couch together, like couples do in the evening after dinner, and we were watching some beautiful channeled music. And we were just kind of meditative, and I just started dropping down into this really deep, deep meditative state. And then before you know it, I'm just crying a lot and I'm doing these things with my hands. And it's not me doing it, it's literally like I don't have control over my hands and arms. Robin, I know you know exactly what I'm talking
I
about.
do. I do. Yeah, I've often thought, it's kind of good to talk about this because a lot of channelers don't. I mean, I have a husband like yours too. He doesn't ask me a lot of questions or really access the channeling opportunity. He doesn't do that much. He has read a lot about it, and it's not that he doesn't believe in it, but the bodily movements and the facial contortions and the sounds and the shaking and the things that happen. And it is by my permission. I have to say, I'll sit down and I'll feel them entering. Okay, do your thing. And I might just get rolled all over the floor. My eyes they leak. It's not like crying. It's a lot of eye leakage. There might
Mhm.
be some excessive yawning, like times 1,000. That's kind of like a releasing of energy. And I
Yeah.
know what you mean about the periods of sadness. And sometimes I think it's lineage healing or even
Mhm,
uh,
mhm.
universal healing that's
I
passing through
agree.
vessel or body. That's what's actually happening.
Mhm.
So I just kind of wanted to be open and transparent to people that there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. And I have a lot of it on record, but I've never put it on my YouTube or showed it because it's bizarre. It's actually
Yeah.
bizarre. I mean, it shows you in a state where something is actually using your body and I think sometimes it's trying to remove energy that I have as Robin. There'll be lots of shaking and moving,
Uh-huh.
lots of mudras over my own body, forms of healing and types of things
Yes.
that
Mhm.
happen like that. I'll go through periods of time where they're really asking for me to do more sit time so that they can expand my consciousness, because what
Yeah.
we can hold isn't always at the level or at the highest level that it needs to be for some of these beings to channel through you. So it's like you're ever expanding too, just like people are learning in their lives and becoming higher levels of consciousness. We have the opportunity to actually expand ourselves when we allow that type of thing to go on. But it's quite crazy and weird, and it's quite funny that I can let it go on and not really think anything about it anymore. My husband too, he'll say, "Oh, she's shaking over there in the corner." I don't really even do it in front of my kids. I don't think that's something they need to see their mother doing. It might weird
Yeah.
them out a little bit, but I
Right.
just curious. It sounds like you have some of the same type of energetic.
Yeah, yeah, we do. The other night, Chuck just said, "Are you okay?" And all I could do was just give him a thumbs up. I couldn't really speak at that point. So,
Yeah,
we just kind of trust the process. But
yeah.
it is really crazy, in a lot of ways. And there, I guess I have, and maybe you do occasionally have my human moments like, is this okay?
Yeah, it's crazy and has this odd normalcy to it where you think anyone seeing this would think this is ridiculous and crazy. But
Yeah.
yet, as it's going on, and I would think as Robin, if I saw it, it's kind of crazy and ridiculous. But something in you thinks, no, this is totally normal. This is what they have to do. You kind of just get used to it and you don't think a whole lot about it. It's kind of funny
Well,
that.
and it speaks to, I think, the bodily sensation speaks to how much we repress, how much we actually can push down in our cellular structure, in our bodily frame, and push down for so many years. It's no wonder that people get depressed or or drink too much or take pills or whatever, because we're just pushing down so much. And now, my husband Chuck, he came up during in Osho. He lived with Osho when he was a young man, who was an enlightened being in India, and then moved to Oregon and was in Oregon many years. But Osho used to actually create a space for them to do what you and I are talking about.
Mhm.
They would do this meditation called a dynamic meditation, and they would just scream and shout and shake and just, intentionally let all their energy just rip, and their emotions, and cry and scream, because he really believed that repression was the major block to enlightenment in the West.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Um,
he very intentionally created these spaces for young people to do these wild physical things we're talking about.
Yeah. However,
yeah.
ours are involuntary.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Well,
It's,
I know a little bit of what you're both sharing because Athena had did an activation with me. It's probably been a year and a half or so ago
yeah,
now.
yeah.
And so I do have the moments where like Robin said, I'm a little embarrassed to be like out in the open because you never know when certain parts are going to start shaking or moving involuntarily. And what I've observed, and maybe one of you would be able to weigh in, is it almost seems like mine is where I'll go through certain areas where certain parts of the body will really, especially I've had it in the pelvic area sometimes where it's just violently shaking.
Mhm.
And then a week or two later, I'll have very little movement, but then the emotion will come and
Mhm.
I'll go in and out of these very heavy states of things. And maybe I won't even feel like meditating, or when I do, I'll be like, oh, what's going on here? Nothing's moving. And then maybe I'll work through those emotion things and then I'll go back and then my body will start to move again. So I kind of get what you're saying about maybe that whole movement is kind of freeing or lifting things out. And then you are then dealing with what the body is freeing.
The Kundalini energy ebbs and flows. There'll be periods of time
Yeah.
where you will have lots of activity.
Mhm.
And then there'll be periods of time where you won't even know that you have Kundalini energy that's active. It'll just go dormant on you, and you'll think, well, you kind of want to will it to get moving again. But you find out the more that you try to control that energy, the less action you get, actually. And
Right.
so you just have to kind of let come up when it comes up. I would go periods of time where they would be shaking me and at me constantly, and then I might go a year and not have any movement. It just doesn't happen, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. There's intelligence in there that's doing what it needs to do, is all I can say.
Mhm.
And you
Right.
just can't really question it. You can't really cause it to happen,
Right.
and it's just something that comes over you. It's just a knowing that, oh, this, you can just tell that this needs to happen, you know?
Yeah, it's a
Right.
freedom. And it's interesting because there's a lot of historical evidence about the kinds of phenomenon that we're talking about. If you look back in the 1800s in America, when there were these really extraordinary revivals in the Pentecostal tradition, that there are many, many, many documented accounts of women shaking violently, of falling down like logs and being unconscious for hours. There's even a really neat documented situation in which the women would be shaking so hard and their hair would make the sound of a cracking whip. This was
Mm,
kind of like the force behind
Mm.
these mudras or movements that they had.
Yeah.
So, in the charismatic church, that kind of phenomenon, the stuff that we're talking about, was very common to them.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it's true. Well,
Yeah.
Heidi, I think you had some questions for Angie. Maybe we can
Yeah.
the realm of what
Well,
a particular experience is behind the scenes.
yeah. Well, one of the questions I've been wanting to ask, and it seems to be a question that's being asked a lot lately, is regarding the divine feminine. So it seems like there's a push, maybe because we were in such a male-dominated society for a long time. It seems like just in the physical or human form, the feminine energy is definitely, I would say, maybe more at the forefront, or maybe kind of reclaiming their power. And what would you offer as far as that, like for humanity and just the divine feminine energy in general being in a larger presence right now? What would you have to say about that?
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's just the most natural course of events for this to be in the forefront now as we're being freed collectively as people. And
Mhm.
as the women are freed, then the children and the grandchildren are going to be more and more freed. So I think it just feels really, really good to allow that to happen. I know Chuck and I are constantly, we're in our older years. And so our cultural conditioning was more traditional male female roles. So we work on in really small and big ways um, in our relationship to keep the equanimity and the balance and the oneness. So that could look like Chuck cooking dinner, right?
Mhm.
Or Chuck doing the dishes, or whatever little things it could be. Like I pretty much quit cooking dinner altogether, and I did that my whole entire adult life, raising three kids. So
Mhm.
um, but as far as that goes, I think Judah's cautionary tale on this is for us as women to really go the distance to fully embrace and forgive men and to fully integrate them into our hearts, just total full on embrace of the men in our lives. Because if we go all the way back to that yin and yang symbol, that in the ancient Chinese tradition and the Tao Te Ching and those sacred scriptures, the yin and the yang is the male and the female, and it is really for those to be in total balance is what wholeness is. And when you look at that yin and yang symbol, there's a little black in the white and a little white in the black. So there's a little good in the bad, and there's a little bad in the good. And the yin and the yang, of course, in this tradition represents male and female. And so when they come together, in every woman, there's a little masculinity, and in every man, there's a little femininity. But then when we just come together in this total full-on embrace, that's when we're really totally healed. And so, I'm all for women's rights at my core, for sure, and for certain. But I think, we maybe have gone too far in some aspects,
Yeah.
where women have tried to become men in some regards in the way they function in the world, in order to be okay. And I don't think that's the goal. I think the goal is to be totally, utterly feminine. And also, in our spirit being, we can also be masculine as well. This is something Judah's been working with me a lot on recently, that that I can be both a father and a mother. To when people come to me, and they've made a choice to see Judah as a mentor for them, I can speak to them as a spiritual mother with all that love and care and nurture and compassion. And I can also speak as a father with directness, with authority, with truth that cuts through the BS. So I think within our inner being, we are both male and female, and we can, move in and out of those energies. They're not really roles. I think the goal is to drop the role of male or female and instead embrace the energies of the male and female both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that that's a really nice answer, because I feel like that forgiveness you're talking about as far as on the male side of things is key. Because if without it, it almost is like the female energy is trying to run over the top of that and squash them down because they were doing that to the feminine energy. So I think that that forgiveness and balance is important. Yeah.
Yeah.
So have you noticed, like, I know, I'm not super, current on, I know we should have Catherine on here on the terms of astrology, but I know that something shifted this year, as far as astrology. We moved into something new. And I think what I read, for about 6 weeks around the time of the presidential election, we'll have a shift back, and then after that will be, I kind of feel like it's Pisces, but don't quote me on that. I could be wrong. So what do you see anything with that shift, that new energy coming in? Do you have anything that you would be able to share with us about that?
Yeah, sure. We'll just let Judah do that if that's okay.
Sure, sure.
Yes, dears. Well, we will share here some things that have been on our mind, and that is that you are the way makers, you are the way showers and the way makers. You are the determinants. You are the determinants in everything that will happen. So vote in alignment with your higher self, with the mandate of source. We have shown this vessel the outcome of the election. However, we are not sharing it at this time through her because it is for each of you, you see, to be determinants of the election. Yes? And what we have asked of this vessel and what she is asking of those in this family is that to neither be red nor blue, but to be purple, to be for all people, in all places, in all realms of time and space, in all nations, to be a proponent of voting for one human family that is held together in love and unity, in forgiveness. Now, it takes both a right wing and a left wing for an eagle to fly. And until this system has been overhauled, this right and left, then both are necessary for the eagle to fly. And so what we have encouraged this vessel and all of you to do is to stay in peace, to stay in the middle of the storm. There will be a storm in the coming weeks and months. Stay in the eye of the storm. Stay centered in peace. Be purple, not red nor blue. Do not engage in justifying, arguing, defending, or explaining anyone's position on either side of the aisle, but simply have a perspective Of looking down, we will say, from a heavenly perspective at all that is happening, knowing then and trusting that all things are working together for good and that everything transpiring is the fruit of your own consciousness. And so accepting that, taking responsibility collectively, this is what we have created. It is ours. So let us care for it. Yes. Just like if a mother had a young child and the child made a mess on a visit to someone else's house, they would help the child and teach the child and pick up, clean up before they left the home of the one they visited. So all hands on deck, we would say, to clean up any messes that come. Everyone taking responsibility for yes, 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 for the collective unconsciousness and consciousness, however it may be.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, and when you talk about the left and the right that way, I think that a lot of people where they're coming from right now is they feel like they don't have a good choice on either side.
That's right.
So hopefully that they're calling for another option or another choice.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
kind of to stay in the middle, as you said, in not what you don't prefer, but the idea that perhaps you get another choice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I've hear that a lot too. Well, neither choice is preferable for me. And so that's where, as you said, we jump in and begin meditating and dreaming and creating in our meditative state a world in which there is a third party or there is a different option, and
Right.
and the Buddha taught us, that the middle way is the way, right? So finding that, being that purple person, yeah, that's neither right nor left, red nor blue, but really can love and embrace all persons and all perspectives, knowing, um, yeah, there's so much more. We've got so much work to do. And I think it's okay for things to just get crazy. Sometimes things have to really be in your face for you to just be done with it and know that it's just not working and
Mhm.
you're finished.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah,
It creates a
I
preference.
see that. Yeah. So Anjie, I know that you help people with to find their angelic helpers. Um, Outside of having a session, is there any tips that you could offer someone that maybe is curious about their spirit guides or their helpers or people that are behind the scenes, how to connect more fully with them?
Sure, sure. Well, in the personal sessions that I did, and I'm sure Robin has also had this experience. We've started and we've learned so much through the experiences that what we do has probably evolved quite a bit. But in the beginning, when I had sessions, I would spend a lot of time channeling Judah for that person on whatever the issues or topics that were important to them. But nowadays, what I prefer to do is to help that person actually begin channeling for themselves and ask their own guides and get their own information. And so
Mhm.
Judah really just acts kind of as a midwife, really, or a foster parent until they're able to make their own connection. But to answer that, yeah, for sure, everybody can channel. Everyone can channel. It's pretty intuitive, but I think a lot of times our minds will talk us out of it. So we can also learn it as a skill, just like we would learn to play the piano or to cook Italian food or to play tennis, right? So the first thing I would say on that is just to know and understand that every soul, everywhere, in every realm of time and space is accessible to everyone. We know this happens, because we might be thinking of somebody, an old friend, maybe that we haven't talked to in a year, and then boom, the phone rings and it's them.
Mhm.
So we can connect with any other soul on or off the planet. And we're doing it a lot more than we think already. So all we have to do is be more intentional about it. So I encourage people just to sit, and put their hand over their heart and meditate for a moment or two and just say to your inner being or higher self, or however you speak to yourself, could you please locate the consciousness of Judah, of Athena, of Archangel Michael, of the Buddha, whoever it is that you're wanting to connect with, Joan of Arc. I don't know who it is that you want to learn something from, but you just sit and ask, your inner being, could you please locate the consciousness of Judah? And then within seconds, you'll just feel like a shift happen. You just feel some different energy in your body. Maybe you want to smile, or maybe you want to cry, or maybe you'll feel tingles or pressures somewhere in your body. And you just will have that awareness that that entity is there. If you're not sure, your mind will always try to talk you out of it, you know? So I've learned to just throw the mind a bone, like giving a dog a bone to chew on. So once I've asked my inner being, can you please locate the consciousness of Judah? Then I feel that little shift. I'll throw my mind a bone and I'll say, Judah, is this you? And I just ask a simple, straightforward yes or no question. And I encourage people, you can feel in your body what a yes feels like and what a no feels like. A no feels shut down, cut off, blank, dull. A yes just feels open, expanded, lighter, happier, elevated. So we don't have to hear audible words coming in our ears. We can trust our body. Our body always knows the truth. Our mind is constantly lying to us, our ego mind. Yeah, and our mind does have value, but it can be tricky. But the body doesn't lie.
I think what a lot of people do, and maybe I even did this too, and I'm glad that you brought this up, is there was a lot of knowing. There were a lot of intuitive hits and things that were going on early on before the channeling experience came. But some people see us or someone else channeling, and they think that that's exactly how it has to begin or how it has to happen. And it can happen very gradually, through, like you said, an intuitive hit or trusting or a feeling or knowing that a response was correct and actually giving yourself the consideration of believing that. And that's what really cultivates that process and makes you a receiver, if you will, and actually opens you up to the opportunity to channel. And so I think some of the best advice that you just mentioned is just to trust yourself in what it is that you're feeling and what you get guided towards. Start to really lean on your intuition. People will ask me about talking to past loved ones. It happens once in a while. I don't tout that that's what I do. But why does it happen? Well, because the one that they're asking chooses it. It's not because I'm choosing it. And usually it'll happen if we're talking in a fun and fond way. Sometimes somebody will come forward. I don't know about you, Angie, but that comes to me a little bit differently. As the group channels, I step aside and I don't have any part in it and no worry about it. But when a consciousness of another one wants to occupy, it takes Robin. And so then Robin has to repeat and trust in what it is that she's receiving. And I become the channel rather than the vessel that the channel is using. And that was uncomfortable for me in the beginning. And it's one of the reasons that I have not fully expanded into that area yet, because the amount of trust that you need to say to someone, oh, they're holding up a book that used to believe to you, or your mother's putting a bow in your hair or something, that might come through me, but I don't have the trust or I can't lean on that enough to go ahead and put that out. And that's actually what it takes. It actually takes you putting your head on the chopping block in order to expand that potentiality in you.
Yeah, and also being willing to get it wrong, right? Like, I remember I had a friend ask one time, can you please ask Judah where my ring is? I lost my ring. It was very precious to her. And I felt intuitively that it was in her attic. But she doesn't have an attic in her house. So, I felt like a fool. So it's okay for us to make a mistake and feel foolish. And who knows why I had that answer. Maybe that was symbolic for her. Maybe it's something, because it was her wedding ring. Maybe she's just kind of pushing something away or storing something. Or maybe I just totally missed it. But it doesn't really matter, right? We're humans and we're allowed. And it's okay to just try things. And I kind of get what you're saying too, Robin, about the mediumship piece. When the first time I ever acted as a medium for someone, it was an accident, really. I started singing in Spanish to her just kind of intuitively, and I didn't know why. And I looked at her and she had started weeping because what I sang to her was, "You're my heart, my heart." And her grandmother had raised her and had died recently, and I didn't know that. And her grandmother called her mi corazón, my heart.
Mm.
So, but if I had known at that point that I was channeling a dead person, I probably would have freaked out because, again, my religious conditioning was that you should never, never, never talk to the dead. But
Yeah.
now, but now I'm willing to do it much probably like you because I want people to feel comforted and at ease and at rest. And so yeah, we're just open for whatever brings service, high service and love to people. And lately, Judah said to me the other day, you don't call yourself channel, call yourself a funnel because
Mm.
it's fun. And I liked that. And I've also heard Judah say lately that that their purpose is not so much to channel some profound earth-shattering message. Their purpose when they come to people is to love them, to love them. And when I help people for the channel for the first time, usually tears roll down their faces, and I'll ask them, "What are you feeling?" And they'll say, "I just feel so loved." So lately, I've been calling it communing instead of channeling. Like my best moments with my husband are when we're just snuggled up on the couch together, not saying anything at all. We're just communing. And I think that these beautiful beings mostly just want to be our friends and to love us and support us in our lives. I think that's much more important to them than some agenda to voice some big, earth-changing message, at least in my experience.
Yeah. I think it's important what you said about the trust. I don't remember if it was one or both of you that said that, but I've had experiences where I think I was getting an intuitive hit, but I never recognized it until after. One example of that would be, Robin, when I got the condo in Florida,
Yeah.
one had come for sale like a month or two prior to the one that I purchased. And there was something that entered my head that said, "You're going to live in that, what do you call it? A gated community. You're going to be in that gated community." And I thought, well, how is that going to happen? Because I don't want the house that's for sale and there isn't another one. And then all of a sudden, a month later, this one came in. And then I looked back at it and thought, oh, they were trying to tell you that
Well,
this was.
and to take it a step further, Heidi, what's really
Yeah.
humorous in all of that is you ordered it by asking for a Panera and a Starbucks to be right
Yes,
next.
that's true. I said my
Actually,
life would
you
be
ordered right
complete.
across the street,
Yes,
So it's really
that
kind of
is
funny
true.
how we can love something and then be loving the idea of getting a condo and say, you know what, I would love it if there were a Starbucks and a Panera. And sure enough, that's
And a
what
Target. And a Target.
that's what actually materialized. So
Hey, and a girl can be happy with those three things. Everything else is
That's
fine.
right. That's right. Yeah, so that was good.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was really, it's like, but you created that, even though you think someone outside of you did it, but it was just
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
call was satisfied. That's really funny.
Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to work, or I shouldn't say work on. Athena doesn't like people working on things, but that's one of the things that I hope to gain is more trust in those types of things. Because then I can, when I have a big decision to make, if I feel like, oh yeah, this is what I should be doing, it'll make it
Well,
easier because I tend
you
to
know,
stress over things.
now we somehow found ourselves on manifestation, but that's what I tell people all the time is that when you express something that you love, like that you just like you did with Target and Starbucks, and in the background there was this idea of getting a condo, the universe really loves to play. It really loves to magically create something like that for you. So the best thing that you can do is really focus on something like that you love, that's in that wheelhouse of what you're trying to get, and inadvertently that other request that you have out there just come flying in right with it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's funny that you say that because right now I have a little similar situation going on, and it's too soon to know if it's going to pan out, but my husband and I have been looking for property in Wisconsin for a while because we sold our home and there really hasn't been much. It's been very, very low inventory. And I walk down this road every day And I used to look at these two very kind of dilapidated houses. And they were on the river, and I'd say, oh, God, that would be a nice place to live. I think I could see a nice home there, you know. And lo and behold, one of them went for sale by owner recently. And so we're kind of thinking, or maybe in the process of trying to purchase that. So I don't know if it'd all work out or not work out, but it will be very funny to look back if it does work out, because I always, of all the houses on the road, those were the ones that were owned by brothers that I would zoom in on. Every time I walked down the road, that's what I would look at as, that would be a nice place to be. So we'll see.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So, is there anything important before we wrap up today, Anjie, that you'd like to share with viewers or listeners? Anything that you think would be important?
Let's see if Judah has anything.
Okay.
We just want to encourage you, each and all, that you are absolutely and most certainly being guided, continually being guided. Even those of you who feel, well, but I don't hear angel voices, or I don't see them, or I don't feel much in my body, and so on, you may say, but we are still there. We are still there. We live outside the visible spectrum of light. Just as a dog who can hear a whistle or a sound that a human cannot hear. You see, we are here. We are here. We are here, whether you see us or hear us or not. So begin to operate in trust. And we will say that this is why you are watching a channel like this, because you have seen this beautiful, this beautiful Robin and Athena and her lovely sister. You have seen them, and you understand by watching them, ooh, there is a reality beyond what my eyes can see. And this Athena rings true for me. This message is life-changing. It is revolutionary. It is empowering. It is unique. It is different than anything that I have heard or received before from my conditioned life. And so this is why you're here, because in the witnessing of this channeling, you have come into faith in the unseen realm, into faith in the support of loving high consciousness beings. So continue on with us as if you see us, as if you hear us. Know that you 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 are loved. You are loved, you are cared for. When you speak our name, when you speak the name of any angel for which you have an affinity, an attraction, an understanding, speak to your dear Athena. If she has won your your respect, if she has credibility in your eyes, call on Athena when you are in trouble, when you are hurting, when you have questions, and stand back and watch the results. Ask and surrender, ask and surrender, ask and surrender. And all good things are coming to you on the way, on the way, on the way. They are here and on the way, here and on the way, even before you finish uttering your wishes, your desires. They are on the way.
Thank you.
Well, and you know, fortunately, what happens as a channel is your ability to trust does actually expand because you have this experience, and so that makes it easier for you to believe in other experiences. But what I've learned is every time I have an experience, I've had a couple with telepathy recently where I thought, boy, this can be problematic. I'm going to be hearing what my husband's thinking when I maybe don't want to hear it, or my kids are thinking about me. But what I found out is when I slipped into the level of consciousness of where telepathy was a part of, the judgment and condemnation frustration and the anger and resentment and all those types of emotions that normally would have been felt, they aren't there. They're not at those levels of consciousness. So one has to recognize that you have to join that level of consciousness in your perception and your belief of it. You have to leave behind this lower level thinking and a belief system that you have. And that's how you get access to other levels of consciousness. That's where the channeling experience is. That's where the telepathy is, where the lovely life is, the fifth dimensional reality, and the things that are created in the divine part of you that are waiting to enter you. You have to shift out of this old paradigm that you've been hanging into, and allow that natural rise in your consciousness. And then those things just flow to you. It's just a gift. It's not something that I used to think that I better not swear. You know, I had to give up my evening glass of wine, and you know, that I was never going to say a bad word about anybody again, and I was going to love everybody, whether they were the kind of person I didn't really care to spend time with or not. And I realized it's not about any of that. It's just about loving yourself and your individualistic expression as a human, and allowing that to be what it is. And that's what really connects you into the higher levels of consciousness, which is where your source is. It meets you in love. It doesn't meet you in some type of a derived perfection that you think somehow you're going to muscle into your human experience, because nobody's able to do that. You can try, but eventually you end up being disappointed and dissatisfied in that endeavor. So that's really what I've learned in my journey. I don't know what you would think of that, Anjie, but that's kind of the conclusion that I've come to, and it makes life a whole lot more fun, a lot simpler, and a lot more effortless.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. I absolutely agree. You know, when we have been in our work life or our corporate world or whatever our scenarios and culture has been, where we work to earn approval and we work to have a roof over our head and all that stuff. And so when we get into spirituality, we can tend to overlay that onto spirituality. Well, we have to be good, we have to be better, we have to be gooder, we have to, like you said, not swear or not have more than a glass of wine, or whatever all the rules that we have going on in our head. And I just have not found that to be true. Judah was saying, I think it was last week, you know, you don't let yourself be both saint and sinner, angel and devil, good and bad. It's back to that yin and yang. It's the white and the black. It's the white with a little black in it, and it's the black with a little white in it. And just be okay with whatever you are, you know. And spirituality is not like suddenly becoming some kind of perfect person that doesn't make mistakes or never gets sick. Or I remember watching Wendy Kennedy talk about how when she would get really sick and then she would channel and she would feel better while she was channeling because they were bringing in the Pleiadian energies, and then after she finished channeling, she'd go right back to being sick. That made me feel better because I'd had the same experience, and I was like kind of kicking myself, like I should be beyond this getting sick. Well, that's just nonsense. It's just nonsense.
Yeah.
I'm really grateful that you came on the show. It's been just a pleasure talking with you. I feel a real affinity to you. I think we kind of somewhat going around the same time, if I'm not mistaken by that. And just really appreciate the
We did.
Yeah, and where would anybody that wants to check out what you offer, can you give listeners your information on how to reach you if they want to?
Yeah, it's thejudahchannel.com, and we're the Judah Channel on YouTube. And we've got lots of free things available for you on YouTube and on the website. Yeah. And daily quotes are one of the fun things we do, where you get a mini channel, like the golden nugget every day from one of the recent channels, and those are free. Those are a lot of fun. And we also have our Telegram group, Judah Family International, if you want to jump on there.
All right. Well, thank you again for coming on. It's so nice talking with you. As Robin has said, I also feel an affinity to you too. So it's wonderful talking with you again.
Love
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye.